Thank you very much, Ben, and organizers for having me today. It's my pleasure to tell you about our work at the data science team at Vertex. So I can tell you more about clinical trials, healthcare, pharmaceutical, in general, how we apply AI, Gen AI to help solve business problems. So Amen is our big boss of our team. He's feeling sick today, so can't be here, but I will try to do my best to give you the best presentation I can do. Okay, so a little bit about Amen. I do want to introduce you to him as he is a very well-connected leader in this space. He is the vice president, the head of our corporate data science AI team. He was recruited by our chief scientific officer 8 or 9 years ago, David Altschuler. He wants to build a great AI team for Vertex. So he joined us, started a team from scratch, and going from just him now to about 40 people. So in our team. So he previously also started the formal data science team at Merck. He was also at the White House, at the Obama White House, working with the chief data officer back then at the White House, and also at the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So if you see him at some events, definitely say hi, and he'll give you a lot of wisdom and networking opportunities. As to me, I am a data science director working on the clinical area at Vertex. I've been there for about 7 years coming up. I started as individual contributor, creating my own model, analytics, and then gradually leading more and more projects of my peers, and now leading teams of data scientists, data engineers, ops experts to create solutions for our business partners across the company. Okay, and previously I did my PhD at MIT and undergrad at UC Berkeley, but all in bioengineering, not like data science AI, but it's a new thing. So today's talk is structured as 2 parts. So first I will tell you a bit more about just the context of clinical trial operation, what kind of solutions we can create. And then the second part is more like the case study of how we leverage Gen AI to create automate informed consent forms for patients in the clinical trial. And then along the way, I would like to share lessons learned, how we build the solution, some very high-level discussion with you all. But since this is the plan for this talk, and definitely let me know if you have any questions along the way. So first of all, an introduction to our team. Our team's name is Data Strategy and Solutions, which is our corporate data science and AI team at Vertex. So we essentially function as a SWAT team to work on hopefully the highest impact projects that our leadership and leaders across the company identified. So we work hand in hand with the business partners, and this is very important, a strong success factor, we think, determine whether it will be succeed or fail is the ownership of the business. Do they come forward with a clearly identified problems they would like to solve with us together? And then we collaborate closely for a year and 2 years or half a year, weekly meetings, etc., to co-create and have the accountability of the solution we're making is making a difference and the impact is being measured. So our team have data scientists, data engineers, and software engineers, and ops, MBA folks to help us on track. And we highly respect the ethics or data use agreement whenever we're working on very sensitive projects. So the quick snapshot of our team. And then about clinical trial operations. I assume maybe most of us are not as experienced or knowledgeable of this area, so I'll try to give you the context of that, right? So the clinical trial operations are a very crucial part of the pharmaceutical company because running the trials, from a small phase 1 trial to large phase 3 trials, that's like multi-country, can be tens of millions of dollars to hundreds of millions of dollars. So this operation, every part of the operation has important decisions to make. Where do we go find the patients? If it's a rare disease patients, how do we identify them effectively so we can actually recruit patients? A lot of the trials fails due to failure to actually recruit. And then other important factors are the clinical sites. Do we choose the right sites with the right performance metrics that they've shown before? And how about the PIs? Who do we want to collaborate as of the investigator for the trial? Who are treating patients, who have patients to enroll in the trial? So starting in 2019, we started piloting and test and learn very small solutions with the team, building relationship with the clinical operation business partners, aggregating different public data, like census data, physician database, and also private data, which is like patient large-scale claims data. So combining large public, private data set, creating those AI-ready data sets so we can build analytics, modeling, output from that. So after a few years of building those test and learn and gaining more confidence and trust from the team, we started doing more, just like in the middle, more standardized offering of what we can do. The team knows us, they trust us, they have a lot of demand on us, helping them solve problems, and then started doing a lot of measurement on is the solution or modeling we put has actually making a difference or not. So really being conscious, very, very thoughtful about that. And now into 2024 and beyond, from all the popularity of Gen AI technology, we not only, from all the previous development we have done, we like standardize it, making sure they're embedded in the business process, so they're crucial. Also trying to expand into Gen AI, creating new solutions and capturing those flywheel effect of high impact across the business. So this, I then mentioned, like centralized data set is very important. And so a couple example is like, where do we find the patients, the leading site, and finding what's the best way to recruit patients, and all of those, combining them into like very AI-ready data set, and can be used to create insights, business have questions we can answer, or just creating patient models or that linking to their treating physicians. From there, you can have like a physician list for a trial recruitment. You can also have an early physician list for commercial planning to know once my drug is ready, past clinical trial, where should I go to hire sales force, field force, to make sure my drug is launch ready. So you can see all those data questions and decisions are all linked from early trial planning, all the way to a successful pharmaceutical product at the end. Okay, so in general, we now try to summarize our solutions, our team create and providing into two buckets, right? Because this is all very Gen AI driven space now where people always talk about Gen AI actually. So it's helpful when we frame it into analytical AI versus Gen AI. So on the Gen AI space, we know like, we want to generate document first drafts, and those will be really big time saving, or create brand copy drafts, helping the field team answer questions from a database, etc. So those are very popular Gen AI use cases we've been working more and more on. But very interestingly and encouragingly is the business come to us more because all the Gen AI popularity, they will be like, I have a problem, I think AI can help solve. But then we'll be like, what kind of AI are you talking about? So chatting with them more, understanding actually the question, usually is maybe traditional machine learning, or it's just bringing the data in the right structure in the database to help them surface, insight. So those we are trying to help the business to be, to be more trained on, to know when to use what technology to help them solve the problem. So those we frame as analytical AI. For example, site identification using connected data, predict trial performance, predict patient, whether they have rare diagnoses or not, to help them enroll in the trial. And then, like Bayesian statistic to predict trial enrollment based on the actual enrollment data as it's coming in live. So those are all kinds of examples we have. We're trying to help them standardized, kind of provided to the business partners so they can use it in their day-to-day workflow. Okay, as I mentioned, those two types of solutions, one example I want to give you the architecture of how it works is in this way, where we have foundational automated data layer on the bottom, and we also have disease-specific analytics and view, and on top, predictive layer. So this is kind of our kind of solution where examples of solutions we're making and in use by this business, because we have, when we want to analyze the protocol, like is a good design, but hopefully that's good to proceed. And then we have a foundational layer. We're connecting all the sites data, physician data, patient data, where patient concentration are, and creating those foundational data layer, which is crucial for the next step of creating individual data view of like performance of selecting the right sites. And then even on top of that is the predictive analytics, the machine learning model, the Bayesian model to show our prediction in the right format and at the right time. So this is an example of our analytical AI design, the solutions we're having. And then similarly for the Gen AI solutions we're having, we have the foundational piece on the bottom where we're extracting information from a complex document. In this case is a protocol document, which is like 50 to 100, even more pages of long document describing every aspect of the trial to the clinical site, for the physician, for the site to know what to do at each of the patient visit, what needs to be measured, et cetera. So very complex long document. So our foundational part is to extracting that very effectively as digitized information. And on top of that, we have a user interface to do the action of digitization. And importantly is the QC piece. And as we know, some of the extraction are pretty accurate if it's a table extraction, but then some of the free text extraction are very LLM prone to hallucination if we cannot help with it. So another important piece we put in that user interface is the centralized QC workflow. So hopefully eliminate any inaccuracy of the Gen AI extraction before the downstream documents are generated. So on top of that is what we have, the supported automation of document, which is, I will talk more about the informed consent form, so ICF, and then the site budget drafting, and other like case report form, database building document, training document, PowerPoint, et cetera. So all those are on top of the document type, the top one that we are supporting, which is like the end output we actually giving our business partners to use as a first draft. So after all, I think one point we want to deliver, what we want to share is more about thinking about the connectivity, about this kind of document auto-drafting map, where if we're doing point-to-point, just like doing one input, one output, repeat that, there's some shared code base, definitely effective and efficient, but it's still a lot of maybe manual, a lot of repeating development of the same component. So we're trying to do is building a document network. So for clinical trial operations, we're like mapping down almost all the documents, which is the input, output, what's the source, the components that go in and out of each of the items, and then kind of map them out and to see where is the most synergy items to start building, extracting, and automating, and hopefully having more and more impact by doing more of that in the map. And we do this similarly for the regulatory space too. So doing that exercise really help us connecting and knowing where to, what kind of document to do first for auto drafting using LLM, maybe some what other items to do later. So there are some cornerstone documents like the clinical trial protocols or the clinical study reports, which means like after trial finish, you have all the patient data, you have to compile this large report for FDA approval. So that document is also very crucial. So those documents are like cornerstones. They're like the Park Street or the Downtown Crossing station connecting to a large map of items. So I think those kind of visual and learnings, something we'd like to share with you. Okay, so close to the end of the part one, we're just giving you more and more context about this whole space. And this is a complex slide, but what I want to describe is just the entire life cycle of clinical trial operations. If you ever get into this space, hopefully this will be helpful for you. So we have essentially design, plan, and execute of the trials, right? In the design phase, it's about whether the trial protocol is either is too stringent or too burdensome for the patients. Do they have to do tests that's actually not necessary for the clinical trial success? So leveraging a lot of real-world data, using large language model to analyze the protocol, and trying to optimize the inclusion, exclusion criteria of the trial to make sure we are set for success for the rest of the plan and execution. And then for the planning phase, it's about like, do we select the right place to go to for our trial? So as I mentioned, like site ID, finding the sites, and having the predictive model to predict which one is more successful versus not is crucial in the planning phase. And then in the execution phase, actually doing the work. So yeah, definitely very important. So document auto-drafting, the starting up of the trial, you have like hundreds of thousands of documents need to be generated. So that is where the LLM hopefully helps a lot. And then at the end, we also have a lot of monitoring, like is the trial on track? Is our prediction of the enrollment as we are hoping? What is lagging behind? And then do a lot of logistic planning, shipping, and database lock accordingly. Hopefully that helps the many teams doing on clinical trials to having an easier life managing what they're doing. So here, just trying to give you a bigger picture of the whole ecosystem. At the end of the day, our team is actually really mindful about measuring impact. I'm not sure whether that's like all data science team are top of their mind because it's our team's on top of our mind. So for each of the solution we deliver and deployed, we try to say how we can measure it actually making a difference. Whether it's actually the estimated patient enrolled increase, or is millions of dollars in cost avoidance, or because we standardize the solution more and have a very efficient data pipeline, we can have 4x the indication we created the solution for, but having less of the resource. And so here are examples of the impact measurement metrics we collect over the year. And we try to hold ourselves very accountable for that, making sure we are working on something that's high ROI and measurable. Okay, so next, actually the case study on how we automate the drafting of informed consent forms using GenAI. So at Vertex, we did the piloting way, right? We didn't have everyone getting access to GenAI right away. We started with thinking about the business areas where this could be really helpful and started piloting them with dedicated team and partner with our data science team. So example is like info retrieval from complex documents, generation of new tags, summarizing maybe field reports from the Salesforce, from medical affairs team, QC documents from each other, so creating chatbot of like a specific domain database and knowledge database. So here are all the examples, but today we kind of focus on the info retrieval for informed consent forms. Why is informed consent forms so important? So there are so many important factors we want to highlight. It's a document that's patient-facing for understanding, comprehend what it means to enroll in a clinical trial, all the risks the patients have to endure for consenting to enroll. So it's a very important document for patients. It's also a representation of our company or each of the pharma company with the patients, right? Directly patient-facing. So that's very important to represent the right information in a patient-friendly manner. There's also about approval timelines. So if we have a trial that's 150 sites across like 20 countries, and that means we will have, each site will have a slightly different form. So you can imagine doing all those starting up of the study for each of the sites. That is super time-consuming, very manual. So that timeline drags on, which means patient can only be enrolled afterward. The trial timeline will extend even more. So the approval timeline consequentially will be impacted. So those are all very important factors to consider. And then each of the sites usually have a different regulatory requirement. So you can imagine every country requires different information to be included, and every site also has different things they want to bring on the form. So this is a highly, important and complex scenario we're talking about. So driven by all those discussion, business team, which is the global study startup team, reached out to us to think about how we can create a solution using Gen AI to address those problems. So manual process, a lot of stakeholder review, and then because the trial portfolio at Vertex is growing very fast, and as I mentioned, there could be so many different forms required by even one trial. We have to think about how do we scale this once with the same number of people doing the work, but do like 4 times, 8 times faster. So all of those business needs have driven the start of the pilot. So we started in late 2023. So just bear that in mind, how we started the project. The solution we came up with in that time is essentially building a LLM-powered series of Python algorithms that to autodraft ICF from protocol and language library to give the team a draft as a boost. So very simple way to understand it is on the left, we have the starting point, which is a protocol in document that's like 100 pages, let's say. And then we have a blank template where the ICF is supposed to look like. Very regulatory controlled, it has to be saying specific items, risks, all those sections has to be there. And then we have a language library, which are essentially approved language snippets, paragraphs of what should we use exactly as the word and paragraph to describe it to patients. And those were actually stored in Excel files back then. So in 2023, it was not a good system. So, but from there, we extract the information, process, improve it. So essentially copy all the very crucial information from the trial protocol and then paste. So use the code to insert all those important pieces information into the blank ICF template. So then showing on the right is the output. What, the yellow highlighted template place is filled in as, green information that's custom from the protocol document. So what I show is here is just a cover page. It's just a table, but it is a 10 to 20 pages long document of free tags and tables. And so it's a very interesting document to auto draft. So from here, I want to show you maybe just quickly under the hood. I don't have a super technical slide, but just like the LLM solutions we're building is majority Python programming and software engineering. Maybe 5% of that is actually LLM. So we have, custom modules to parse the document, index different sections. So the document is actually quite structured, right? So we want to make sure each individual sections is specific for individual kind of extraction and LLM prompting versus random chunks. So there we also have extracting component, streamlining the user entree, and then processing the response for populating in a template. And So our software engineers and data scientists worked really hard on this. And then we also have really bespoke prompts and very specific user entry questions they can answer. That should be what they know from their discussion, conversation with the team, but not easily parsable from documents. So those are components that all come into the algorithm to produce the output. So putting them in the architecture view looks something like this, where our application is actually built on Flask, using Flask, and Python, using Dash. And then it's hosted on AWS with our single sign-on control who can access to the application through Cognito. And then that's sitting on top of our Python algorithm on the core processing and workflow, as we just described. And then from there, we do API calls to our Microsoft OpenAI private LLM. And then also we have built a dashboard to connect to show the performance of that. Because over the time, as every protocol we draft, we have the truth, what do we call ground truth? Yeah, so from the ground truth data, we keep monitoring whether we are deviating from the accuracy we're from originally measuring, whether we have still good performance along the way. And then on top of that, we also have another API call to our language library. So thanks to our data engineering department, we put the Excel file, the little language snippet in Excel, which is really hard to use, hard to approve or editing or collaborate on into a custom system. So where the team can go in, approve the language, so they're stored having a auditing track of what's happening and know which one to use for what disease area. So that system is really good in production. So then we do another API call to pull those language in place of our auto drafting workflow. So after all that, user input, the user can download the auto drafted document and continue their workflow. So overall, we want to illustrate at Vertex is we kind of want to make sure we are leveraging Gen AI LLM the best way it can, and also minimize the hallucination risk. And so usually when we talk about Gen AI, we talk about human in the AI loop, human in the loop, which maybe you're imagining not a lot of the workflow is AI enabled or Gen AI enabled, but in reality, we are more about on the right, where it's the AI in the human loop. So the pharmaceutical company, we have a lot of regulation we want to follow. We need to ensure our output is very high quality. It matters for patients, for the medicine success. So we just need to identify what workflow in this long chain of human collaboration is the highest probably problem to solve, the most important problem to solve, and find out whether AI can help remove that bottleneck or expedite the workflow. So then what it looks like now is more an AI in the human loop, where the auto drafter hopefully accelerate this workflow a lot more from the beginning, so the rest of the team can build solutions, can use a solution to have a really great output faster. So at the end, I do want to share some lessons learned from this whole process from late 2023 to now. The solutions in production is being used in the business team, but we're continue building on it. So hopefully, we might even have more lessons learned along the way as we evolve the solution. So 1, 2, 3, definitely very important to measure impact, especially if you are in a company that's maybe more tentative on using the technology, using Gen AI. So along the way, you want to show what the big difference it makes and how we can leverage it even more. So for illustrating that, we did a quick experiment at beginning, right? We want to have a side-by-side comparison of just the manager doing the document from scratch. Depends on how complex the trial is. It could be like 1 hour or 3 hours. It could be even longer. And then using the application to generate the first draft is about less than 10 minutes. So comparing that, it's great time saving, like 90% drafting time saving. The absolute hours, you would say maybe not that high. You save like an hour and 30 minutes maybe. At the same time, we also compare the accuracy. So the human output and the machine output have a very high accuracy. We're very happy to stand behind. And then to expand the experiment, we did a more end-to-end comparison where not only comparing drafting time side by side, like I just described, but also adding a second component on measuring the editing and QC time, which is very important because if you imagine if someone receive a document they didn't draft themselves, they will take a little bit longer to kind of understanding what was done. So probably spend more time editing and QCing than they normally do it if they do it manually themselves. So those are very important hypotheses we're kind of trying to measure and see end to end, does it actually make a difference? So the drafting time we know is about 90% time saving. And adding the editing and QC time measurement, we have the manager doing it side by side from a middle starting point that's partially filled document from the auto drafting, and then measuring how long it takes for them to edit and finalize it. So at the end, it's about 40% time saving end to end. So this is a very important experiment for us to know what is actually being impacted. And because the team is really busy, that means we cannot do this again and again. So we did it for 2 trials. And hopefully that's, very good, strong story for the business and for us to keep building on this more. So beyond measuring an impact, we also really highly emphasize on the change management component because I guess the success is really crucial to this part. The technology is good, the solution is decently made, but if the change management, the process is not figured out, people will not use the solution. So which means like the data standardization, like the template, the language library I described. So those are all very important. We're treating the text data as the same rigor as hopefully regular structured quantified data. And then training plan, we have to kind of bring the business team with us as we develop the solution, tell them what is under the hood. They don't have to know the code, but they have to know the assumptions we're making and then the caveats of LLMs. What's the strength and weakness, so they know when they're QCing it, what they should be paying attention to at the end. And then scaling it up, because one document, we want to have the business team be able to generate themselves, and then think about how do we do that for more documents so we can scale up the impact dramatically more versus just like individual hours we can save for one document. So on scaling up front, so this is what the user application looks like right now. So the team can go in, upload the document, select the templates. Right now, this shows 4 different templates, but we also have many country templates that user can generate like 10 drafts at the same time using the same source. And they're all linked together because most of those documents, templates, is having components that they're all sharing. So linking those templates in one connected network is very important on how they're editing and finalizing them. So those are very important part we are working on for scaling. And then building and scaling more this year is about how we're expanding the solution into a more general doc auto drafting application, which means we have a solution not only draft ICF, but also like site budget or database building forms, block volume calculator, and training slides for the trials based on the protocol. So all those we building another software and user interface to make sure the user can do their own digitization, QC, and then generation all in one go. So this is where we're right now. Quite an exciting journey. Definitely a lot of Gen AI, but a lot of software, just the data science, general data science skill set. So very proud of our team who actually come this far on building this now. So thank you so much for your attention. That's the end. Any questions you have?
Thank you so much for an excellent talk, Lily. I just had one question, and it might have been actually addressed in the talk and I missed it. But so one thing that you had mentioned for the ICFs is that each site will often have their own like specific text that they'd like to include. So is your LLM like a bunch that, like, can it get site specific, or does the LLM provide kind of the base document and then each site adds their own text?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You probably are very knowledgeable in this area too. So we discuss with the business, we can only get to, probably makes sense to get to the country level because the country has their own requirement. So we are linking our main types, right? Main global, pregnancy, adolescent, etc. Like those are main templates, and we map them to countries. Those are very manageable, but then each country can have different regulation. Like they could have central IRB, means they have more uniform requirement for all their sites in the country, or they might have a very segregated. Every site has different requirements. So to do that won't be as feasible or high ROI.
Right.
So we stop at the country level where the document will provide important guidance for each of the site to draft.
That is so cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. Question I had, it seems like your data team is very well aligned with the senior management leadership and their objectives in the business strategy. And that's something that's difficult to do. And then you can prioritize use cases based on that. But was there a time when that wasn't the case, and how did Vertex go from the journey where that wasn't the case to where apparently you are now, where it is the case?
Yeah, very good question. Thank you. So the question is about how we align with business and to making impact, and what do we do if that didn't happen? Right. So I do say it's very important we have strong leadership. So the top down is probably a very important component. Hopefully you have very supporting leaderships who is interested in new technology, what it can bring. The other end is we definitely have to continually show impact and being good collaborators. There are definitely a lot of folks that are not big believers, or they are very dubious from like 2019. So doing the first site scorecard with them was a lot effort explaining, what are different data pieces, what does it mean. So I would say there's no easy path versus just keep doing good work from our team, showing them along the way components that's helpful for them, model that's, they understand what it means. And gradually they are just believing us more and reaching out to us more. So that's probably my takeaway on just trying to do good work, even though maybe the support is not there, and pushing it forward gradually. On the other hand, though, we do want to work on problem like people are really motivated about, so they have the enthusiasm to like work with us and reach out to us and co-develop. So if that doesn't happen, that's a project we would just kind of put in the backlog because we have a lot more projects to work on. We would kind of prioritize those with more enthusiasm and business backing versus the others. Yes.
So with AI-assisted coding, people notice the change of distribution of time you spend on different things, like less time on coding, maybe more waiting, more time fixing things. In some studies even suggested overall there's increased time when you use AI-assisted code. So with other types of documents like ICF, what are your observations?
Yeah, thank you. So the question's about people might spend more time using the AI system or leveraging it or producing output. So I think it's definitely very good observation. We definitely spend a lot of time developing the ICF, the solution, than the time saving accumulate to date. If the team use it longer for more trials, more countries, I can see that ROI becomes more positive, a lot more positive in the long run. And then the subway map, if we actually do that for systematically all the documents as linking components, individual components, we do them all, we'll have so much more benefit. I think we'll overcome the time that you use to develop them. It's just have to keep pushing to achieve that balancing point, I think. And then on the other hand, also really be thoughtful in the resourcing planning. Just like, is this a project we should do? Or is just a cool chatbot we can build? Then in that case, then let's not do it because there's really no way we can have a good ROI out of that. So that's just my perspective. Hopefully I answer something useful there.
We have to actually.
Okay, we have to end. But yeah, feel free to ask me questions offline. Yes, thanks.
Thank you so much.